I texted my wife at 8:12 that morning. Nothing dramatic, nothing desperate, just a simple message. Morning. Don't forget dinner with my sister at 7. She usually replied fast. Even if it was only a thumbs up. Even if it was one word. Laura was the kind of person who never let a message sit unless she wanted it to sit. That mattered, because when someone who always responds suddenly goes silent, it doesn't feel like absence. It feels like intention. At 9:03, I texted again. Hey, are we still on for tonight? Nothing. At 10:40, I called once. Straight to voicemail. That was the first moment my stomach tightened. Not because I thought she was hurt, not yet. Laura's phone died all the time. She forgot chargers, left her ringer off, got buried in work. There was always a reasonable explanation available if you wanted one badly enough. And for the first half of that day, I did what people in marriages do when something feels wrong but they're not ready to name it. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. By noon, I had sent 3 messages. By 2, I'd checked her location twice. Nothing updated. By 4, I'd stopped telling myself I was being calm and started understanding I was being managed by silence. That's the thing people don't say out loud. Silence is not neutral. Silence can be a tool. By 6 o'clock, my sister had texted me asking if we were still coming. I told her Laura had gotten buried at work and we probably needed to rain check. My sister sent back one of those too fast replies people send when they're trying not to sound judgmental. Again? I stared at that word longer than I wanted to. Again. That one word made me realize this wasn't just happening to me. Other people had noticed the pattern too. Laura canceling late. Laura going cold for hours. Laura returning like nothing happened and making me feel unreasonable for asking. I put the phone down and looked around my kitchen. Everything was normal. The light above the sink was too bright. The coffee mug she'd left that morning was still in the drying rack, and the basil plant she kept insisting she could keep alive was leaning toward the window like it had given up on both of us. Normal rooms are cruel like that. They make betrayal feel impossible right up until the moment it isn't. At 7:16 I called again. Voicemail. At opt. Doi I texted. Laura, I'm getting worried. Please, just tell me you're okay. No answer. At 8:47, I stopped pacing and sat down in the dark living room with no TV on and no music and no excuse left. That was when memory started doing what memory does best, when trust begins to crack. It started pulling old moments out of storage. Her phone face down at dinner. The sudden passwords. The late meetings that somehow never had names attached to them. The way she'd started watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Not lovingly. Not even guiltily. More like she was measuring something. Timing something. Waiting for some internal calculation to finish. 3 months earlier, I'd come home from work and found her sitting at the kitchen island, laptop open, screen angled away from me just a little too fast when I walked in. I remember joking, "Classified?" She'd smiled. Not warmly. Just enough. Maybe. At the time I laughed because married people are always stepping over things they don't want to inspect. You tell yourself privacy is healthy. Independence is healthy. Space is healthy. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes. But privacy and secrecy are not the same thing. And once you learn the difference, you can't unlearn it. At 9:30, I called the hospital nearest her office. No Jane Doe. No accident report matching her. I told myself that was good news. Then I sat there in the dark and realized something uglier. Part of me had been hoping for an innocent explanation dramatic enough to erase the other one. Because if she wasn't hurt, and she wasn't in trouble, then there was only one question left. Where had she been all day? And why did she want me not to know? At 10:11, her location blinked back to life. Not near her office. Not near home. Not even on the highway I expected. Just a quick flicker, then gone again. But it was enough. I zoomed in on the map. An industrial part of town I didn't recognize well. Warehouses, converted studios, small commercial units, streets people only drove through if they had a reason to be there. I screenshot it. Then the dot disappeared. I sat up straighter. That was the moment worry changed shape. It stopped being fear for her. It became fear of her. Not because I thought she was dangerous. Not yet. But because whatever she was doing it with intention. And intention is always more frightening than chaos. At 10:43, headlights crossed the front curtains. I stood. My heart didn't race. It dropped. There's a difference. Racing means panic. Dropping means recognition. I heard the car door close. Then the measured click of her heels on the front path. Not rushed. Not guilty. Not tired. Measured. The front door opened. Laura stepped in like she had just come back from a normal day. She looked immaculate. Hair fixed. Makeup untouched. Coat folded over one arm. No apology in her face. No stress. No explanation already forming. She closed the door quietly behind her and saw me standing there in the dark living room. For one long second, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled. Not a wide smile. Not relief. A smirk. And she said, softly, almost playfully, "You know, that was it. Not, I'm sorry. Not, my phone died. Not, something happened. Just, you know," like the rest of the sentence belonged to me. Like she was handing me a rope and waiting to see if I'd hang myself with it. I stared at her. What? She tilted her head slightly, still half smiling, like I was being slow in a conversation she'd already finished in her head. "You know," she repeated, "I wish I could tell you I handled that moment well. I wish I could tell you I stayed sharp and said exactly the right thing. What I actually did was the thing most people do when someone destabilizes them on purpose. I tried to return to logic. I've been calling you all day." She set her keys down gently on the entry table. "I know. You ignored every message. I saw them. That landed harder than if she'd denied it. Not missing them. Not forgetting. Seeing them. Choosing silence." I took a step toward her. "Then why didn't you answer?" She looked at me for a second with that same unreadable expression. Not anger. Not shame. Almost amusement. Then she walked past me toward the kitchen. I was busy. I followed her. Busy where? She slipped off her coat, draped it over a chair, and opened the fridge like this was any ordinary night in any ordinary marriage. Out. Out where, Laura? She took out a bottle of water, unscrewed the cap, and drank without looking at me. That detail bothered me more than I can explain. People who are afraid avoid motion. People who are lying often over-explain. But people who believe they control the room? They do calm, domestic things while you unravel in front of them. She set the bottle down and finally looked at me. "You're acting dramatic." That word hit exactly where it was meant to. Dramatic. Not worried. Not confused. Not upset. Dramatic. A cheap little word people use when they need your reasonable reaction to sound like instability. I crossed my arms, partly to stop myself from saying something reckless. "You vanish all day. Your phone goes dark. You cancel dinner without telling me. You come home at 11. And I'm dramatic." She leaned against the counter and studied me. And there it was again. That expression, like she wasn't just looking at me. Like she was checking whether some prediction she'd made was turning out right. Then she said, "I told you." "You know." I stared at her. And for the first time all night, something colder than anger moved through me, because I understood what she was doing. She wasn't explaining herself. She was baiting me. She wanted me to fill in the blank. Affair. Surprise. Problem. Accident. Secret. She wanted me to choose one so she could either confirm it, deny it, or use it against me later. It was control through ambiguity. And once I saw that, I stopped chasing the answer in the way she wanted. So I changed my tone. "What exactly do I know, Laura?" That made the smile flicker. "Just a little. Not enough for most people to notice. Enough for me." She picked up the water again, buying herself a second. "If you don't know, then maybe that says something." Then she walked upstairs. Just like that. No explanation. No fight. No closure. I stood alone in the kitchen, listening to her footsteps overhead, steady and unhurried, and realized something I had not wanted to admit all day. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a move, and I had no idea what game she was playing. I didn't sleep much that night. Laura showered, changed, got into bed, and turned away from me like we'd merely had some small disagreement about errands. At one point, around midnight, I heard her phone buzz on the nightstand. She picked it up immediately. Immediately. So the dead battery story I had almost invented for her was gone now too. She typed something, screen brightness low, then placed the phone face down and closed her eyes. I lay there staring at the ceiling. When you stop believing the story you told yourself about your own life, the whole house changes temperature. The mattress feels unfamiliar. The walls feel thinner. Even your own breathing sounds like it belongs to someone else. At 1:13 a.m., when her breathing finally deepened, I turned my head slightly and looked at the edge of her phone. Dark screen. No name. No preview. I did not reach for it. Not because I'm noble. Not because I didn't want to. I wanted to badly enough that my hands were already tense under the blanket. I didn't reach because instinct told me something more useful than snooping that night would happen if I waited. People reveal more after they think they've won the first round. The next morning, Laura was gone before I woke up. No note. No text. No coffee made. Just an empty half of the bed, and a clean silence where a normal marriage should have been. At 7:41, I found a message from her. Busy today. We'll talk later. That was all. No heart emoji. No explanation. No mention of last night. Not, we need to talk. Just, we'll talk later. As if the conversation belonged to her schedule too. I read that text 3 times. Then I went downstairs, made coffee I didn't want, and sat at the kitchen table with my phone in one hand and my memory in the other, trying to sort what had changed recently enough to matter. People always think betrayal begins with a shocking moment. It usually doesn't. It begins with pattern drift, a laugh that disappears too fast, a screen turned away too quickly, a schedule that gets blurrier by the week, an emotional distance that arrives before any physical proof. And then one day, one weird sentence makes all the old moments line up like they were waiting for permission to mean something. By 9, I had made up my mind about one thing. I was not going to confront her again until I had something real. Because if Laura was hiding something, then last night had already proven she was comfortable living inside half-truths. And you cannot beat a person like that with emotion. You need facts. Concrete. Boring. Unarguable facts. So I started small. I checked the shared credit card account. Nothing obvious. Grocery charges, gas, dry cleaning. One lunch near her office 3 days earlier. Clean enough to be calming if you wanted to be calmed. I did not. Then I checked our calendar history. She had blocked out large sections of time over the past 2 weeks with vague labels. Client prep. Site visite. Review. She worked in branding. Her job did involve clients, shoots, meetings, presentations. The vagueness was explainable. But explainable is not the same as true. At 10:24, I opened our family laptop in the home office. Laura had her own laptop for work, password protected, rarely left unattended. This one was the household machine. Bills, travel plans, old taxes, shared documents. The digital junk drawer of a marriage. I told myself I was only checking something practical. I was lying. I opened the browser history first. Mostly harmless. Recipes. Home decor. A few online stores. Then gaps. Long, suspicious gaps that suggested private browsing or deliberate clearing. My pulse ticked once in my throat. Then I checked recent documents. Nothing until one file near the top caught my eye. It had no real title. Just a string of numbers and letters like it had either been renamed in a hurry or exported from something not meant to be obvious. I clicked it. It opened as a PDF. At first I thought it was some kind of vendor invoice. Then I saw the header, a property access schedule. Short-term commercial rental. unit number, dates, entry times, deposit received. I frowned and read it again. The address meant nothing to me, but the dates did. Yesterday was listed. Entry granted at 10:06 a.m. Exit logged at 10:48 p.m. My hand stayed on the mouse. Absolutely still. Not a restaurant. Not an office. Not a friend's house. A rented unit. Commercial. And whatever it was, Laura had been there nearly all day. I zoomed in on the address. Industrial District. The same area where her location had flickered alive the night before. For a second, the room went completely quiet inside my head. Not outside. Outside there were birds and distant traffic, and the old refrigerator hum from the kitchen. But inside me, everything narrowed into one straight line, because now I had the first hard piece of truth. She had not been unreachable. She had been somewhere specific, somewhere she had chosen not to mention, and she had a document on a shared computer, because either she was careless or she wanted me to find it. That thought made me sit back. I read the PDF again more slowly. Unit B14. Temporary access code. 3 dates reserved this month. Client name redacted. No company listed. Just enough to prove the place existed and Laura had a reason to be there, but not enough to explain why. I checked the metadata. Saved the previous afternoon. Opened once at 10:58 p.m. That timing bothered me. She had come home around 11, so she had looked at this file right before walking into the house and saying, "You know," my jaw tightened. This wasn't just secrecy anymore. It was staging. She had known exactly what she was doing. Maybe she wanted me suspicious. Maybe she wanted me off balance. Maybe she wanted me to confront her badly so she could turn the whole thing around later. Whatever the reason, one thing was clear. The sentence from last night had not been spontaneous. She had rehearsed it. I took out my phone and snapped photos of every page, then emailed the PDF to a private account Laura didn't know I used. After that, I did something I hadn't done in years. I printed it. Paper makes things feel real in a way screens don't. Screens can be edited, deleted, denied. Paper sits there and says, "No, this happened. Hold me if you need to remember." I laid the printed pages on the desk and stared at the address, B14. I didn't know yet whether I was looking at an affair, a business lie, a blackmail setup, or something stranger, but I knew where the next answer lived. And for the first time since Laura walked in and smirked at me in the dark, I felt something steadier than confusion. Purpose. I folded the papers once, slid them into a plain manila envelope, and stood up. I told myself I was only going there to look, not to confront, not to accuse, just to see what kind of place requires secrecy all day and a smirk at 11 o'clock at night. As I reached for my keys, my phone buzzed. A message from Laura. Just 4 words. "Don't go there first." I froze. The message had no context, no address, no explanation, just those 4 words. And in that exact moment, staring at the envelope in my hand and the message on my screen, I understood one thing with perfect clarity. Whatever waited at that place, Laura already knew I had found it. And somehow, she knew I was about to go. She hadn't just been hiding something from me. She had been leading me to it.